Yay. Well, I am super excited to be here today with Normandi Ellis. Today is our June 7th Wisdom Talks, and this is our sixth one doing this talk. And every month it's something different, even though we have the same questions that we ponder, we look at something different. And today, Normandi is joining us. Normandi Ellis is a doctor of divinity and a reverend. She is an archpriestess of the Fellowship of Isis, a clairvoyant spiritualist minister, and an internationally known author. She is the author of 14 books, most notably the spiritual classic Awakening Osiris, based on the hieroglyphic text of the Egyptian Book of the Dead. For over 40 years, Awakening Osiris has been a touchstone of the spiritual tourists through Egypt and was described as an essential text for the spiritual pilgrim. Her latest book, Hieroglyphic Words of Power, was published in May of 2020. You should check it out. It's really, really good. She is working on a book now on angels that will be published in 2022. Normandi is a sought after teacher of the mysteries. I can attest to that too. I've learned so much from you. Oh my goodness, have I. She has also received advanced degrees and accolades for her creative work in journalism. She is the recipient of writing fellowships, including those from the Kentucky Foundation for Women and the Kentucky and Colorado Arts Councils. She is a spiritualist minister, a certified medium missionary through Indiana Spiritualists. She trains priestesses of Isis, teaches metaphysical and creative writing classes, offers astrological and clairvoyant readings, clairvoyant circles, and private consultations. And I'm going to pop her website into the chat box so you can easily go check out what she's doing and what she has to offer. So I welcome you, Normandi. Thank you. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much, Indigo. It's really a pleasure to be here and see you again. If we can't sail across the skies to Egypt, maybe we can sail through the internet and meet that way.
Exactly, exactly. Well, I started this Wisdom Talks in January of this year, and I did it because I kept questioning truth. I mean, not questioning truth itself, but what is truth? What is it? What is it? And wisdom, what is wisdom? And the more people I talked to about it, the more I got different answers. And so I'm like, what better way for me to learn about wisdom and truth than to create a dialogue every month with somebody who I think is very wise and knows how to walk with truth. And so that's how this started all those few months ago. And we're going to keep on going through the end of the year. There's many different special guests that I've arranged to come with us on this journey. And so the questions that we are walking into today with are, what is truth? What is wisdom? How do we access truth and find wisdom in these really very complicated times that we're living in? And so with that, Normandi, I would like to invite you to share about these questions. So welcome.
Okay. Those questions remind me of, I recently went to visit a friend who was in her 80s, and she was working on her latest book. And I said, well, what is it? And she said, well, it's the history of the world told as if it was the world's autobiography, like from the beginning of time. And I was like, really? And then she said, but I just don't think I can finish it. I have so many questions and no answers. And I thought, here you go. So the question, what is truth? My answer is always, when I think of Ma'at, I think of the fact that the ancient Egyptians said that truth was more than one thing. And you often had two feathers, or sometimes you had three seeds next to the word. And so even though, yes, there you go, the feather of Ma'at, And even though there's the plinth, which is the foundation of the world on which we stand, and I'll talk about that in a minute, the idea is that truth is more than one thing. And my truth and your truth may not be exactly the same. Uh, I find that we're in the middle of this with the talk about the pandemic and what do we do about it, and masking, and is it political, and do I have to follow your rules, or my rules feel different? And I think that the main thing that we need to do is to recognize that, as my daughter used to say when she was little, you're not the boss of me. So we have to recognize that other people have their own self-actualization. And Ma'at is really about the truth that's within your own heart and self-actualizing. And so I can say respectfully to someone who's not masked and doesn't want me to be masked that I honor and respect their right to do whatever they wish. And I respect my own right to draw the line where I need to, you know. So respectfully, truth is more than one thing. That actually brings us into the idea of the foundation that I was just mentioning about Ma'at. And that foundation is a plinth upon which all of the gods and goddesses stand. There you go. That's it. She's got it. It's the plinth upon which all the gods and goddesses stand. And it is what maintains the balance of the world. Ptah, the creator, the progenitor of the world, stands upon the plinth. And that plinth is a symbol for natural law. And everything that we do in this world is connected to natural law. And the thing about natural law is that it goes back to the idea of multiplicity. You know, we talk about levels of let's say heat. Okay, let's talk about heat. There's hot and there's cold. All right, and that's a line that's drawn. That's the base of the plinth. Okay, and you can adjust that a little bit by moving this a little bit more this way if you're comfortable, or this a little bit more this way. But the point is, it's the same thing. You don't replace hot with wet, because it's not the same thing. Okay. So a lot of times what we end up finding is that when we have fear on one side, you know, or what we'll call hate and love, they're not actually opposites, because the plinth is about relationship. Okay. And hate is an internal, is a personal thing. It's not about relationship. It's about, this is me, mine, you know, it's the wall. But fear is about the other. It's the fear of the other. So the opposite of love is not hate, it's fear, you know. And so when you are working in a Ma'at kind of way, you are learning to move love closer, and recognize the fear is like a reflection of that. Okay. What makes perfect sense to me is when we think about those Old Testament sayings where, you know, the angels show up and we were sore afraid, you know, and really it's like we're basically means we're freaked out, but we love it. It's like I'm in such awe and adoration, but I don't know what to do with it, you know, which is exactly how you feel when you fall in love. You're afraid of, like, what is this, you know, like, oh, you know. And so anyway, that's my take on what is Ma'at. Ma'at is natural law. It's all of the 7 laws. And if you looked at the 42 ideals of Ma'at, they go exactly along with that, you know.
Can you share what the 7 spiritual laws are?
What the 7 spiritual laws are? Oh gosh, let me see. There's the law of seed. That's one thing. Or the law the law of everything.
Right.
Okay, it's all connected. It's interconnectivity. This the cycle of life, death, life, death. Okay, perpetuates itself. There's the law of vibration. Okay, um, where Ptah opens his mouth and you can see the word Ren. It's got his mouth and it's got the water moving with the vibration over the top of it.
Right.
And so that's, thoughts are things. That's the idea that thoughts are things. Then there's the law of love. Isis is the best one that I know for that. There is the law of, we'll call it reciprocity.
Mm.
So get as you give, so shall you receive. But it also deals with karma. So you reap what you sow. It's the same law. It's the same principle of giving what you get,
Right.
getting what you get. Well, let me see what some of the other ones are. I know there's 7 of them on it. The law of polarity, which is something I mentioned, the male, the female, the hot, the cold, the everything that is also its opposite. They're all interconnected.
Right.
Let me see if what I can think of off the top of my head of the other ones. Do you know?
Well, that's why I was asking so that you could jiggle my memory. You pulled up the ones that I remembered, but
Well, and there's really more than 7, like there's something called the law of environment, which has to do, it's kind of like a subset of vibration. It has to do with the fact that what you surround yourself with, you can resonate with, but you can also become,
right.
Which is why metaphysically, when we are doing our ritual work, we want to make sure that the altar is clean, the place is clean,
Right.
that we're, ready to roll. And so I think that that's something that often we forget about. But the law of environment was really important in Egypt. You can't change the flow of the river. And so you shouldn't try to, that kind of messes up the way it's supposed to be. I have not dammed the river. That was one of the laws of Ma'at.
Right. Oh boy, have we damned the rivers these days, huh?
Yeah, I know. Look what it's doing too.
Wow.
Yeah, but more than anything, I think following Ma'at, there's that saying of Tahotep, which is think Ma'at, do Ma'at, for she is mighty and her work endures. Ma'at leads to sacredness. And so it's really that balance that you maintain during your lifetime. It's not something that you fear having your heart weighed in the balance at the end. Yeah, if you haven't been paying attention, I would fear it, but you better be paying attention right now, you know. And again, what you surround yourself with and where you focus your energy is going to be what you're going to reap and bring into your life.
So, you know, the ancients, they knew they were born to serve Ma'at, to serve truth, right?
Yeah.
And there's
Yeah.
Sekhmet who came down to protect truth, to be a guardian of truth. And today it seems like we've forgotten what truth is all about, what natural law is all about. How do we find it? What do you do, Normandy, to keep yourself on that path of truth?
I think one of the things that we've forgotten, and I'm just going to blame the rapid pace of the world, technology. We blame it for a lot of things. But the thing is, if we don't stop and be in the world, being in the world is being in relationship to God, according to the ancient Egyptians, because God is nature. God is all of those things. God, goddess, all those things. Spirit is the wind moving through the trees. Spirit is the light coming up in the morning. I get up every morning about 4 o'clock and I sit on my porch and I just sit and I watch the light come up. And maybe I have formalized prayers, and maybe they're just, what my heart's singing, listening to the birds. That puts me in touch for that moment, knowing that I am in this divine and spirited world, and it can carry me a long way through the day. Um, I'm not going to say I'm like this holy person, but good heavens, at the end of the day, when the sun goes down, I do the same ritual. I sit back on the porch and I watch the light go down, and I think about all that has passed in front of me. And I thank it, I thank Tefnut for the little warm rain that came today. I thank Shu for the clouds and the wind. Um, I'm thanking Isis for those little birdies that are in their nests cheeping, as they go to bed at night. It's such a beautiful world that we live in. And, we are Godded beings living inside a Godded world. We're living inside the body of God. And if you forget that, then you have a really rough day.
There's something really important there. This truth of arriving into the present moment, right? This present moment of the sun rising.
Oh, I know what I wanted to tell you. I had this dream one time about the Dalai Lama was in my dream. And we were having breakfast in my kitchen. And he says to me, yeah, I love it when he comes for breakfast. And this day he said to me, do you know what the problem is with having a body? And I said, I bet you're going to tell me. And he said, the problem with having a body is that it leads you to believe that you are separate from God.
Mm.
So, that's it. That's it. And
Somehow this makes us feel like we have a boundary, but really it's porous. I'm you, you're me, we're we, right?
we are we. Yeah. And I don't think I'm saying that it means to let other people walk all over you, but I do think it means to step back before you step forward,
Right.
because you are, don't rush into somebody else's space. It's like cells in your body colliding. You have to give everybody their room and honor their own orbit.
So we've talked about truth. What is truth? What is wisdom? What do you think wisdom?
Wisdom.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Um, for me, um, I keep moving more and more toward asking, it's not about knowing things, but it's about perceiving, siya. Okay, and that's what the ancient Egyptians would have called it, was siya. S-I. My cat is having an opinion. Can you hear
Uh-huh.
her?
She's like, I know, I
I
know.
know she's raising her hand. Siya is, there's three beings that ride along in the boat of Ra, or that are part of the light process, right? One is Heka, which is magic, okay? And that's knowing the right words to say in a particular situation. Uh, Hu, which is the breath of God, which is just being in the space, uh, a be here now kind of idea. Hu, okay. And then Siya is that electrical current that you allow to zap through your body from your crown chakra down to the root, and like a lightning bolt to the ground. Siya is it's quite interesting because it really is like all of the chakras, all of the balance that we need, all of the centers lit up. Okay.
Mhm.
Um, filled with light. And when you look at the fourth shrine of Tutankhamun, there are all these beings that are, or star beings sometimes, that are shooting light into the forehead, into the crown chakra, into the throat, into the heart. You see these beings that are the wisdom beings that are giving energy to the Pharaoh. Um, I think about that image a lot because I think it's very mysterious. I sometimes think it's a process of, because it's like repeated images of the same guy, over and over and over. And it's almost like it's repeating lifetimes. You get this, and then you get this, and then you get this. So I, yeah, so I think wisdom is cumulative, maybe, but all of that, all of the different ways we come to understand the light.
Is there a difference between wisdom and knowledge?
Knowledge is knowledge. It's stuff. you know, um, there are lots of books that have information in them. I write a lot of books that have information in them, right? I know that. I have bibliographies and footnotes. But wisdom is more channeled. It's coming from the experience that's integrated and moving through this balance and comes out. So I would say when you have that, I'll tell you when I know it's for myself when I'm writing, is if I have that zap up my spine while I'm writing and I go, ooh, what was that? Did I say that? No, that came from somewhere else. That's wisdom. Yeah, and I can tell by the way it makes me tingle.
So it's a feeling, really. Like it has to do with a feeling.
I think so. Yeah.
Huh.
But a lot of times you don't get it until you know a certain number of things and then put them all together and go, ooh, what was that?
Right. So accumulate a little of this, a little of that, little, and then that zap comes through.
Right, right.
So Igor, who's with us, welcome. He's asking.
Hi. Hi, nice to see you.
He's asking, can you say more words about Sia?
About
Sia.
Sia. Okay, SIA. Sometimes he's not very well known because we probably know more about Heka because Heka is closer to the material plane,
right?
If you will, magic, because we kind of understand that it's a vibration that we can manipulate in a way, okay, through Heka. Who is more like working with your energy and your breath, and it's a little bit higher than Heka. Okay, so, and Sia is really, if you were looking at the tree of life, it's like the crown chakra and those three veils that come above and then hit the pillar and move through, before they enter into reality. Sia is not something that we see very often. It is something that we know. It's a wisdom that we know interiorly, as opposed to, and how is it gained? It's gained through intention and attention, I think.
Here, I think if I just pulled something up, it's from a different class I'm doing, but
Okay.
It has the picture of them. So let me screen share real quick, and then we can see them and have a little visual.
Are they in their little boat?
They are.
Oh, there they are. Yeah.
So
in the middle.
this guy.
This guy. That's right.
It's like he has a tongue above his head. And then over here, I think this one is who, yeah? And then here's Heka.
Yeah, and there's Heka.
And let me make this bigger so we can see it better.
Right.
Yeah, there he is. Isis.
Right. It's a tongue or a tooth or CI is it doesn't come from you. It's not your tongue. It would be equivalent to what we would think of as speaking in tongues.
Right.
Right. Yeah.
Can I ask you? Hey, hello.
Hello.
Hi. Isn't the middle guy the Kepferu?
Let me go back. Hold on. This guy here?
Yeah.
Yes, I would say that's Kefra.
Which one is who and
Well, I would say that in this boat, in this picture right here, I'm gonna try to look behind it. There's the goddess Isis, who is at the front of the boat. I don't know if you can see her.
yeah.
But yeah, she's
Yeah.
holding hands with Thoth. Okay, and he is, of course, the wisdom teacher, the man who controls the power of speech, the power of language, the power of vibration and intention. And behind him is becoming. Kephara is becoming into manifestation. And then there's Sia, who is the wisdom or the knowledge that comes after that. So we're going from higher mind through the process of becoming into something that we can put inside ourselves and vibrate with. Does that make sense? So it's almost like a sentence. If you look at each one of them, you're moving down the line from Isis and Thoth to Kephara, which is always the transformative, generative image behind every single temple. And then you have the words that are coming across your teeth or over your tongue. Okay.
Yeah.
Yes. Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
And this image on the right with the hands, this is Ka, or is it something else?
Well, it is, he is in the Ka position, but it is Heka. Heka.
Okay.
Yeah, which means magic. So this is
Magic.
in the Ka position. And oftentimes you see it in manuscripts drawn that way.
Okay. What about that picture on the left? Yeah, this one that you're making. This is Knum. Yeah.
Knum in the middle. Yeah.
Yeah. And the snake around. Can you describe this image?
Oh, the snake around it, that's like the Ouroboros. So it's like when you're inside the belly of time and space, you're inside the Ouroboros. But inside all of that, we still have the divine light is in there. It's kind of a metaphor for what's inside our body.
Right. It's interesting. We're over here. Ka isn't here, but there is a little Ka.
There is the Heka. That's the word for Heka. Heka, right there. Yep. So that's the magic of being inside the body. And then there's the wisdom with the eye on the boat.
Yep, right here.
Yep. I love reading glyphs and you know, like seeing all the little pieces of them. It's really fun.
Yeah, me too. Let me get this back in its order and stop my share. Yay, thank you for that little visual moment with the hieroglyph.
That was fun.
So that's making me ask a question that's coming
Okay.
through. So you just had this book come out last year, Hieroglyphic Words of Power. And I know much about that because you were working on that process as we journeyed through Egypt on a number of our trips. And
right. And you made your own cards?
Yep, we made cards. We worked with them. We had some pretty magical moments. If you remember our time at
We
Sicilla,
sure did.
when
We sure
we
did.
had our ghost show up and we pulled cards after that, and he told us exactly what was going on through the hieroglyphic
He was
card.
like, I'm a ghost. Here's what I want.
I thought you were my light boat, but evidently you're not the light boat I thought you were. Okay.
That's
I want
right.
a little light,
Okay.
but it's not my boat. That's kind of what happened. There's a whole story there. Ghost story. Sometime around the fire, I'll tell the ghost story. But I would love for you to share a little more about the hieroglyphs, because there's a lot of wisdom in the way that they speak to us. There's the letters, right? Like this represents this sound, and then when you put them, you have a word. But then there's all these others that are forgive me if I say it wrong, but they're like the determiners, right? That determine what's going
Determinatives.
on,
That's right.
determinatives. And so, and then the last little piece, and I would love to hear more about this. One day I was actually taking a shower, and not that that matters for the story, but I was in that moment where I was just relaxed, and suddenly I was in Karnak. And I'm like, Karnak. And there's in Karnak, which is one of these huge, beautiful temple spaces. There's a hypostyle hall with these columns, like huge redwood trees made of stone. And they're all carved with all of these words and all of these determinatives. And at first, I'm in my mind's eye, I'm seeing the columns and I'm seeing the hieroglyphs on each column. But then all of a sudden I realized that this column was talking to this column, right? And this column was talking to this column, and that it wasn't just about the meaning that appeared, in the way in my Western mind, you read don't, da, 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 da. It was suddenly how the whole complex was communicating with itself. And it was definitely one of those like aha moments. And it was a language that I didn't fully understand, but I knew that there was something going on there that was a much deeper mystery than met the eye just on the surface. So share a little bit more about the hieroglyphs and the wisdom of them.
Yeah, I like the idea that it came to you while you were in the shower, because the first thing that the Pharaoh has to do is be a pure one, washed and fasted before he can enter the temple.
So there you go.
So yeah, so that makes sense. The very first mystery about the hieroglyphs is their appearance inside the Pyramid of Unas, the 5th dynasty. We have found earlier ones, but that was the first time we had what was the beginning of the Book of the Dead written on the walls. And there were no pictures. There were just the hieroglyphs, just the language itself, not a dialogue bubble of what's happening, just the words. So when you go inside the Pyramid of Unas, you're inside the book. You're inside the Book of the Dead, right? And so when you do that, you open the pages up, and there's a right-hand page and a left-hand page, right? And one of the things that I noticed is that the Eastern wall was speaking to the Western wall. And so I went through and started reading all of the texts on both walls and realized that it was a dialogue about light, and Ra being born in the East and dying in the West, the light. And it was a metaphor for our human existence, and all of the things that are on the Eastern and Western walls that have to do with like our daily life, like eating, one of my favorite ones is they eat the gods, because let's face it, everything is God. So if you're going to have a meal, you're going to be eating the gods. It sounded horrible to some people, but it made sense to me, There are, on the Eastern and Western walls, there are conversations between in the birth canal itself. There's a little, it really is like a birth canal that opens up into the pyramid tomb itself. And on the Eastern wall is a story of Neith, who is birthing Sobek. And on the Western wall, there's a story of Isis birthing Horus. And so they're mirror images, parallel. And so everything is like that inside this thing for the East and West. Then I looked at the north and south walls, and that was very interesting to me because there's not a lot on the south wall because that's where that, for lack of a better word, that tunnel or the birth canal is that you and leave the temple. But on the northern wall, it was all about flying up into to meet the ancestors, going up the ladder of heaven into the stars to talk to the ancestors and to get the download, the Sia, and then bring it back and manifest it in your life. And so it was really a transmission wall. It was not, living and dying that we usually think of as the Book of the Dead. This was a shamanic initiation. And I really found that fascinating, the way it was oriented and the way that wall worked. So yes, I agree with you. They do talk to each other. The walls talk to each other. There's nothing in Egypt that was built that was accidental. It's all intended for the light to move and manipulate a particular building or to talk to spirit,
The shafts of light that come in, I'm just thinking about that, like in
right,
how they come and suddenly it's shining on one space and then it moves and it's telling you something different all of a sudden.
That's exactly right. It's telling the rest of the story as it goes.
Right.
That's right.
So then these determinatives, so you're sharing how in this pyramid of Unas, it's just the pure hieroglyphs, right? Just the words, how they're talking to each other. But then in other places, you see all these other parts of carvings into the walls that are saying something more. So,
okay, yeah. So the hieroglyphs in the Old Kingdom, and especially were not pictographic. Okay, like you do have ancient pictographs, like you and I went to see on the walls where we could see there was an old riverbed that's now dried up, and we saw boats sailing through the desert that were carrying animals to be blessed by Hathor and so on. So there were actual depictions of things that were going on. I think of that as like a stone billboard, Yeah. So when you're in Unas, though, as I said, you're inside the book. Its intention is completely different. And frankly, I don't even think that it was just for a burial. I think that he was learning his prayer book that way. He was learning who he was and what he had to do. And that was part of the shamanic initiation that he had to go through in order to be the pharaoh that he needed to be. He had to die and be reborn. And they went through this ritual in which they basically for 3 days, they almost mummify you. Your head's there, but you're in kind of a trance. And they put you in this, I think they put you inside the tomb. And when you woke up, there you were with your sacred text in your book, and you had to make something of it. Now, what's interesting to me is that part of the sacred text is way up at the top, at the peak of the roof. And if you were just using human eyes, you wouldn't be able to see what it said. But it's a really powerful text. And if you used your Ba eyes and flew up there, you'd be able to see it. Yeah. That's not the question you asked me, but anyway, determinatives.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Answer though.
So the Old Kingdom, a determinative is just basically like this, a space at the end of a word. You don't have the same vowels. You have a lot of the consonants, but you don't really know the vowels a lot. So there'll be a picture of what it's representing, like there'll be a T and an R. And if you have a picture of a tree after it, then it's a tree. and that's the end of that word, because the next word is right on top of it.
Right.
Okay. But if you have a T and an R and there's a man like sitting down in his arms, he's like this, then you know it's tire, you know, so it's to be tired, you know. So anyway, the determinative helps you figure that out. Why did they end up using pictures eventually through the Middle Kingdom and the Old Kingdom? Because the regular folks wanted to be like the Pharaoh. It's like, I want a nice tomb. I don't have the kind of money to do it in stone and gold. So could you just, like, you know, decorate my box and put me in it? You know, that's basically it. And so the scribes would say, okay, you know, Osiris is every man, and every man has a soul that needs to be reckoned with and taken care of. And so they make you a box, you know, the coffin text. That's what happened in the Middle Kingdom. And they decorate the box. And a lot of times you'll see it with the eyes on the side, so you can look out and see who's there, you know. And lots of really sweet pictures of the goddess like this, her arms up so that she's embracing you on the lid of your coffin when you lie down in it. Some really sweet pictures. And a text called the Book of Two Ways. It's a little bit different than the pyramid text. It's more Osirian, less about the light and the imperishable beings. Okay, so when it's more for royalty and the families and the nobility and so on, not everybody could read. So they started doing the, you know, little vignettes. Okay, and then when you get to, yeah, and when you get to the New Kingdom, you know, you have all those beautiful old tombs in Luxor, you know, in Thebes and Valley of the Kings and Queens, and you go down and down and down and down into the tombs, and you see all these beautiful, really beautiful pictures and stuff. And the workers were really excellent artists, and they knew what all that meant. And so they would make these books of the dead for people. The biggest Book of the Dead had 178 chapters in it, or something like that. And that was Ani. He was a scribe, and he ran a scribe school. And so he was teaching his scribes how to write various chapters. And they just left the name blank. And so when he needed it, he'd put his name in it, you know. But people could come to his, I guess it's like his papyrus shop, and say, well, you know, my dad's really sick and he needs a Book of the Dead. He's going to go soon. So what do you want for your dad? Well, you have to have a weighing of the heart. You have to have a confession. You have to have not scattering his bones. You know, you have to have a prayer to the deities. So which ones do you want? You know, that kind of thing. And they were different little chapters. And they just, because papyrus is so sticky, they would like wet the edge and slap, you know, the next chapter onto it and press it and just keep going. So you'd have one scroll sometimes that would be like 78 feet long, you know, pretty big. And
each
yeah.
person's was individualized, just like we're
So it was individualized, yeah. And your confessions, you know, your 42 ma'ats were individualized. So I might say something like, I have not slept with my neighbor's wife, but I might have left out the fact that I tried to sleep with the Pharaoh's concubine. I mean, it was, you know, it was kind of like you could say whatever you needed to say in it, as it was more public. But that was, you know, that was a more write your own script. There were particular ways that you were supposed to do it according to the priests and the pharaohs. The pharaohs were more accountable than other people.
Well, the pharaohs had to receive ma'at, care for ma'at, to
Right.
ma'at, right? That's a pretty big accountability.
Right. And there's that image of Seti, you know, that we saw, that beautiful Seti holding ma'at. Yeah, offering ma'at. This is the truth that you gave me when I became Pharaoh. And now at my death, I give it back to you, and I have not touched it one bit. It was like, I've used it, but I've not changed it. So, yeah.
I always wonder, not always, but often, I guess, what if all the leaders in all the countries today were to receive Ma'at and care for Ma'at and return Ma'at? We'd live in a
No,
very different world,
yeah, no kidding.
right? Very different world.
Just get instead of the book they use now, give them the plinth.
I swear on this plinth of Ma'at. Yeah. Wow.
So, any questions? We're almost done. Are we almost done?
Our hour is almost done. It's amazing. The time
Wow.
just flows like the river. So yeah, let's see if there's any questions that are here from, we have Anita just joined us. We have Barbara and
Hi,
Daniela,
Anita. Hi, Barbara. Hi,
Charlene.
Charlene. Happy birthday.
So any questions from any of you about truth and wisdom, about, I keep wondering, like, I love this practice that you shared about getting up before the sun and meeting it, greeting it, receiving it. And then at the end of the day, as the sun's setting, to meet it and greet it and review what the day was. What other practices do you have, or any of you who are here, that help you arrive into this place of truth and help you access your wisdom? It's not just all this knowledge, all this knowing, this accumulation of stuff, but this true, like, lightning bolt of, like, aha.
Well, I loved what you said, Normandi, about the relationship and the kind of the juxtaposition of knowledge and wisdom. And I can imagine moving through a lifetime, excuse me, professional lifetime in particular, where your body of knowledge doesn't really change, over the decades.
Right.
But your attitude toward that body of knowledge and the humility with which you hold it and you apply it and you spread it changes enormously.
Right. Right. And I guess that's the meaning of the lintel at Delphi, know thyself. It's not what you know, it's what you know about what you know.
Or what my attitude is toward what I know.
Yes, yes.
How I take what I know and manifest it.
Right.
In the world.
Mm-hmm.
And one can be a wise way, and the very same knowledge can be manifest in, such an abrasive, aggressive, arrogant way, an unwise way, early on.
Right.
Infantile knowledge, I think, not a mature knowledge, not that you gain more knowledge, but you gain an attitude about what a relationship with that knowledge.
I like that. I've been pondering a lot applied wisdom, right? Applied wisdom, not just the wisdom I have, but how am I applying it? How am I manifesting? How am I using it in my walk, in my talk, in my work, right? How am I applying in that wisdom?
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Barbara. Yeah. Anybody else want to add into this idea of wisdom and truth?
Yeah. Hi. I'm not always aware of Ma'at or in my daily life, I'm just going about my business. But I love, like, if I'm doing a tarot reading or an astrological reading or doing some alchemical healing, or even just listening to a friend who's having a hard time, I feel it then. I feel connected to that wisdom. And it's not like I'm channeling it, because it just seems available. And And so I'm grateful that we have these tools. You know, that's how I stay in contact with this magic and this wisdom and this articulation. And then all the wonderful memories of amazing magic happening in Egypt and other places. I remember those when I forget. Oh, yeah. So that's what I offer.
Thank you.
I like the idea of ma'at being something that you feel in an exchange with another person, like compassion, because that really is ma'at lives on the tree of life at the heart. It lives at the heart level. And so it really is about being at peace with other people and being able to, yeah, to hold that and to hold the best and the highest for them as well as yourself. That is ma'at.
Yeah.
Thank you for saying that, Charlotte.
You're welcome.
I love this image. So there's the scales, right? The scales of Ma'at, and on one hand is the heart weighed against the feather, right? And just in life, there's ups, there's downs. Life is kind of like this. But if I'm the scale, then that, just like you said, that point is my heart center, right? And so the up and the down, it comes from this place. And it's not whether it's up or down for me, it's how am I standing upright so that pivot point can always be coming from my heart center, always come from my heart center, so that my heart can weigh against that feather and ultimately be light as the feather.
And so I'll repeat a phrase back to you that I've heard you say frequently, which is, how am I holding this?
How am I holding this? Yeah. How are we holding this? How are we holding our truth? Right? How do we recognize our truth, little t truth, my truth, your truth, our truth, within the truth, right? The capital T truth.
Right.
It's a big question. And there's a lot of people on the planet right now trying to figure out what their truth is, or believing their truth is the truth when it's a truth. It's part of the truth. Yeah. Well, Normandi, we are getting close to the end of our hour, and I'm wondering if you have anything coming up soon that people could jump in with you around.
Sure. I am going to be doing a spiritual journal group. I'm leading a group in spiritual journal writing, and we're going to be focusing on actually natural law to start. And then we're going to use astrology and numerology and a couple of different techniques to dive into our journals and really cull the information. We've had a lot of time during COVID to think about things, and this is the time to chew on it and figure out, this is where this is going. So I'm teaching this class on Wednesdays, the fourth Wednesday of the month, and so I have one coming up for my Mountain and Pacific group that has room for people if folks want to come, and then I have another one that's coming up this Wednesday for people who are on Eastern or Central time zone. And if you would like to join, even though you're in a different time zone, let me know. Email me. You can go to my website, which Indigo put up there momentarily ago.
It's there.
And yeah.
NormandiEllis.com.
Yes. And just, you can click on it and email me and tell me you're interested in doing that class.
Yay.
So that's it for me. Thank you.
Thank you for this conversation and exploration into truth and wisdom. It fills my heart, not with heaviness, but with lightness, right?
With lightness.
Full of
Yes.
light. Yeah. And thank you to each of you who came on with us today, and in the future time, whoever's watching this. Facebook got weird on me today. The technology tricksters played games with me. So I'm going to be posting this afterwards onto Facebook. So all of you who are watching in the future time, thank you for your presence. Thank you for paying attention. And we'll be back next month with the next segment of Wisdom Talks. So until then. Be well, everybody. Thank you
Thank
for being you and all that you do.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.